all over the world, the pandemic has transformed human interaction. More of it happens at a distance now, and more of it happens online, much more. And all that information, all that content needs moderating. And that's the job of Two Hat Security based here in Kelowna. Carlos Figueiredo is the Director of Community, Trust and Safety with the company and is on the line with us this morning. Good morning, Carlos.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Now, in the before times, before this pandemic came along, what did Two Hat Security do?
So we create technology to protect online communities from abuse and harassment across user-generated content, text, comments, usernames, live chat, and images.
Okay. And then when COVID-19 came along, it started spreading in January, and by March, of course, it was a pandemic. When did you notice a change in your customers' traffic?
It was already March. Before the lockdown, we were processing over 30 billion with a B, pieces of human interactions a month, right? So text and all those pieces of user-generated content that I mentioned. And then we saw an increase that was very steady, starting with the lockdown in March. And essentially in 3 months, we tripled that volume. So as of May, we are processing over 100 billion pieces of human interaction.
Wow. And now, obviously, there are more people at home and sort of killing time online, but the pandemic has also created all kinds of conversations online. Do you know what accounts for this huge increase?
Yeah, for sure, the major increase was the lockdown, right? We help a lot of companies that are social platforms and online games. With the lockdown, a lot of people started looking for online communities for that solace and that place of social interaction and connection. So given that a lot of our clients are online games, that accounted for a very sharp increase. To give an example, we saw a very sharp increase around March in areas like Italy and Spain, where some of the first places to have more stern lockdown measures, and people just flooded online services to find that connection. So that's really the main reason. But of course, with a lot of other challenges going on in the world, people are seeking those areas for connection and discourse.
And has that, I don't know if you can tell, because I know that, well, I'm assuming that there aren't actual people who are moderating all of these comments. I assume it's algorithm-based, but do you know whether the discourse that you just mentioned has changed? Do we know if it's becoming, is there more to moderate per, million bits of information than there was before this all happened?
Definitely, proportionally, if you were just thinking about what we consider negative behavior, we see consistently that about 80%, 80, give or take, are very innocuous, low-risk content across both text and images. And that was before the pandemic. Throughout the pandemic, this has remained consistent. The difference is, even looking at the high-risk content, it's true that it has remained the same proportion, but then if we're talking about 30 billion versus over 100 billion, you're going to triple the amount of high-risk content of negative behavior online. So now you have to monitor that. So let's consider if you have a small team, like one of our clients has a small team of moderators, let's say 5 moderators, suddenly, pretty much overnight, the moderation workload has tripled, right? And how do you stay on top of that moderation? Because, yes, there's more negative content because there was an increase of the content overall. And people were talking about all sorts of challenges and hardship right now online. So there is a bit of a concern to stay on top of that.
To what extent does this vary by country or by genre? That, let's say America versus Canada, or a business site versus a gaming site. Are there differences there?
There's some differences, yes. Like the cultural differences are very, very important, and all the nuances that they're related to language. To give you an example, the Dutch language, we have a language and culture team, a very bright team of language specialists who understand the formal and the informal language. And even before the pandemic, it is a cultural element of the Dutch language that people may harass each other by using certain expressions that are related to disease, right? Like to maybe wish disease upon somebody. you can imagine that with COVID-19, that was also transferred, and people were wishing COVID on others, right?
And what do these trends that you've noticed in the last 3 months tell you about civic discourse or business discourse more generally?
More generally, what it tells me is that there is definitely like an appetite for having the really hard conversations right now, right? And I'm seeing companies take a very strong stance against hate, against abusing their platforms. And the public, the users, are very aware of it right now, right? So there is a hyper focus and also hyper awareness of what is negative discourse and what is not. I think the whole status quo that we had before of freedom of speech and thinking about not equating that to hate speech right now is very, very strong. One example of that is that a lot of media outlets and some of the companies that are coming to ask for our help, they're starting to allow comments again in their stories online. And this is something that before a lot of companies were just shutting down comments, just not taking the risk. But right now, this course is so important. So the trends we're seeing is people are actually opening up those channels for conversation.
Now, I know you're a global company. I mean, you work all over the world, and the pandemic has been a global phenomenon. But along with that has been the Black Lives Matter movement in the United States and here in Canada, around the world as well. I am curious if you have noticed any trends related to that particular social movement.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we have many clients across a variety of platforms, and everybody right now is very much like taking the stance to listen to, you know, let's do better. Let's make sure that communities are inclusive, they are diverse, and our role in this as a company who is providing that technology is we are not the ones actually doing the moderation for our clients, right? What we are doing is we are creating the technology and adding all the terms to our dictionary and our filters so our clients can make the decision about what they are going to monitor, what they're going to allow or not in chat. So our role is to make sure we are following all the global trends, including the Black Lives Matter movement, which is a very important moment in history. So we are paying attention to all the acronyms that are coming up, all the internet lingo, all the different things that are coming up, and updating our system. Our language and culture team is doing that daily, as well as our research and data science team is looking at all the trending terms, right? And we have actually one of our staff members is a journalist with a 20-year experience, global experience in Brazil and in China, and he's responsible for checking the best sources and making sure that those things are updated. Once that's updated, then our clients have the best baseline to make moderation decisions.
And how would you expect, I mean, you gave us a little hint of this earlier, but how would you expect this to evolve as, we hope, the pandemic someday recedes?
Oh, yeah, that is a very important point. We are already forward-looking to a possible second wave, which, if we're talking to lots of experts and globally, I think we can really see that it's unavoidable. And we are getting ahead of that, right? Because our clients were hit by this incredible increase of volume, right, overnight. So we're already anticipating a possibility here in the fall for us in Canada of a second wave and other places. So we're already providing best practices for our clients. How do they scale their efforts, right, without having to hire more people? How do they rely more on technology? So we can definitely see the possibility that some of this volume will be sustained. And potentially with a second wave and more lockdowns, we need to get ahead of that curve, so we're providing good practices to our clients.
Carlos, it is fascinating work. Really interesting to hear from you this morning. Thanks very much.